got a lot to do in an hour, and I'm here. Book of the month unboxing of my book of the month. Just got back from class. Presentation went well. This was honestly more chill than I thought it would be. So that's good. I've officially finished my 3rd semester. Halfway through my 2nd year. Crazy to even think about. All right. Box is open. The book that I got is Before I Forget by Tory Henwood Hoen. Also came with some wrapping paper for December, and then the book of the month bookmark is Christmassy as well. This book is a late coming of age story that examines the role of memory in holding us back and moving us forward. And I believe that it's about I believe it's about her parental relationship with her dad as he has dementia or Alzheimer's. Yeah, and even the dedication is for my daughter in memory of my father. She's probably gonna be spitting some real crazy stuff in here. Just my type of read. I did actually just get a notification that they had this available through Libby now. Not gonna make any promises that this gets read before 2026, but I am intrigued by it, and we'll see what happens. Now I think what we will do is finish Lilith. I've been saving the last 9% so that all of my thoughts could simmer and circulate and stew. So let's finish that, and then I'm going to tell you. What I'm gonna tell you, I don't know, but you will be told things.
Neurons and synapses of my brain fizz and spark. Unseen, dark corners of my mind connect. Flint sparks take.
I have finished Lilith by Nikki Marrery. I have a lot of thoughts about a lot of things, and so I'm just gonna go stream of consciousness, but also maybe try to have a little bit of a theme. So first, let me position myself. So I'm a Black woman that is also a psychologist, because I feel like that's important. And I study race, and I also study like intergroup relations and, geography-based religion. A lot of different things that I kind of tapped into while I was reading this book, and also while I'm going to tell you about my thoughts. I was raised Southern Baptist, okay? So I enjoy mythology, but I've never read mythology where I actually knew some of the characters that we were speaking about. So yeah, I think those are the biggest things. So I was raised Christian, I'd say. I always had questions about things in the Bible. I know specifically I used to be like, who mothered Cain and Abel's kids? Like that was a question that used to plague me. And that's even in this book, so I thought that was kind of funny. But I had those types of questions, and then at 16, I went to Arkansas Governor School, and that was the first time that I was around other people not only asked those questions but expanded on them. So I was stuck between a rock and a hard place, I guess, as far as how important is this religiosity aspect to me, and what even does it mean, because I only know this and I only believe this because of my parents. So what does this actually mean to and for me? So at 16, I kind of had those questions and thoughts, and going through my own journey, if you will. And then going to college, I think taking intro to philosophy also showed me that people have thoughts on what good and evil are that aren't even connected to what's being taught in the Bible. So I just kind of expanded the way that I was allowing myself to think and understand and appreciate different perspectives. Okay, so that's a little bit about how the lens that I was reading this from. Now, as for the story, this is about the wife before Eve in the story that I feel like everybody on earth, this might be a bold claim, but I feel like no one on earth over the age of 12 years old doesn't know who Adam and Eve is. Is that a crazy thing to say? I don't know that it's true, but I'm going to stick by that. I think everybody pretty much knows who Adam and Eve are. This is my first time reading feminist literature, but this picks up with Lilith, who is Adam's first wife, and her banishment from the Garden of Eden, and just the different things that she did over the course of an immortal life to reset the balance that she feels like God has taken from humanity. I'll talk about what happens in the story first before I give my thoughts. So in the story, right, Lilith is in the Garden of Eden with Adam, and at first they were very much equals, and then they were not, and Adam became very controlling and all of these different things like that. Lilith was pretty much just like, I'm the first woman, you're supposed to be the first man. We should be equal, right? Like there's nothing that says that we should not be equal people. So Lilith does eat from the tree of knowledge first, I believe, and then there's this experience with Adam where he essays her, and she just asks, like, why would something that was offered to you so freely, why would you take it? Like, and isn't that a question that's still popping up every day in society? But she is banished from the Garden of Eden, and Eve takes her place. Lilith also meets Samael, which I thought was Satan, but they are two different entities. She meets Samael, and this is her love interest pretty much. And he spends a lot of his time in hell, basically. But when Lilith is banished from the Garden of Eden, she spends a lot of time just wandering and kind of purposeless and doesn't really know what to do. And then she embarks on this journey to kind of save the original mother that they believe that they should worship, Asherah. So she meets different people along this journey. She hangs out with Noah's wife on the ark. She also gives birth to a son on the ark. And a fun thing about that little storyline was that her son, two of his toes were conjoined. So over the course of the years, because remember I told you that Lilith is immortal, over the course of the years, she would look over her different ancestors and look for those toes that would remind her of her son. But she had a son on the ark. We also got to see like the curse of Canaan and how all of those different things unfolded. Then she spent a lot of time with Jezebel. I just think Jezebel has this rep for being a lustful woman, and people are like, oh, you're a Jezebel this, Jezebel that. She has this connotation in history that is long standing, but I like that this story kind of breaks that apart from her perspective. And then lastly, well, not lastly, she hangs out with a lot of people, but majorly she hangs out with Miriam, Jesus's homegirl, right? And talks about how the things that Jesus was teaching, they specifically talked about him telling a sick man to like get up and walk. Now, didn't talk about the other things that like Jesus and the disciples actually did, because I just think that was a separate thing, but talks about some of the miracles that he did and explains that's just not how they were viewed by the people, and that Jesus was a man. Also, she implies that Miriam went back to remove Jesus's body and she buried him. Now this is fiction, but hey, what else is the Bible? But we don't know these things for sure, but that's what she implies. My biggest let me finish the summary. So then after that, she kind of sees the development of society and women and, the things that we go through. And she goes and finds Samael because she's realized that this whole time you need your counterpart to be able to put good into the world. And they go back to the Garden of Eden and eat the fruit from the other tree because they think that we're supposed to have this one cohesive knowledge of good and evil and know that they are two sides of the same scale. Okay, that's pretty much the story. Here's where my thoughts come in. As a scientist, we are told and taught to replicate and extend things. You're supposed to read all the different literature. You're supposed to be able to cross-check your sources, do this, do that. But how come as people, the Bible has been allowed to dominate religions, cultures, and beliefs, like truly used as a colonization tool? And not once are we saying, why not consider other things? Because if the Bible was written by men through the perspective of men, things are going to be left out. The same way with research, right? Like as more and more time goes on, research is getting broader because in the 50s and 60s, nobody gave a rat's flip about LGBTQ, really about black people. So, and that's arguable right now, but we're just now starting to consider those things. Why do we have this text over here that we will not touch and that we will not consider that we will not consider? Some people today will hold up the Bible and point to the fact that Eve ate an apple, and that is why women are less than men. Women cannot teach, women cannot do this, women cannot do that. But at the end of the day, I raise the question, what can a man do without a woman? Tell me fast. It just made me think about all of the different perspectives and kind of question why we allow this. And just why we are not considering the whole parts of the story. Is Jezebel herself lustful? Or were the men that wrote the story afraid to admit that they were lustful, so instead blame it on a woman? Because why not blame it on a woman? I also talk about how after Jesus died, the 11 disciples, after Judas went and did his own thing, they then took the story of Jesus and spread it. So they could have added whatever they wanted to. Some people might have been. And remember that the disciples all had a history, like, of being robbers. Like, they all had a history. So after Jesus dies, I'm just imagining the 11 of them now with this new kind of chip on your shoulder that I walked with Jesus Christ. So therefore you must listen to me and I can say whatever I want. All right. So now we're already messing with things, or maybe the original teachings, if you believe that Jesus is the only one that can come down and save, right? I also like that she doesn't really villainize Jesus. And Jesus is my homeboy. Jesus is really everybody's homeboy. I don't think any of the problems ever go to Jesus, and not really God either. But when you get to asking those more existential questions, I think that's who they'd be directed to, as opposed to Jesus, who was a man. We have these stereotypes about women being more nurturing and wait, let me back up a second. Everything about a woman's body is also just like reflective in nature somehow. So again, it's like, why not look to women for answers? But I also think with, the way that Christianity spread to the US and kind of having that understanding that women are less than men and women cannot be teachers or women cannot be preachers, then it's ingrained in people not to look to women for the answer, when I think that's where the answer lies anyway. The book also talks about how you have to be aware of the fact that good and evil work in tandem. It's not one thing. Everybody has potential to be both because the universe exists and works through balance. It also brought up questions for me about just like, I think if you're a person that is trying to do good and put good into the world, everybody has a different direction to get there, but the destination is the same place. That's kind of something that I talk about a lot that used to bother me, but I'm becoming more and more okay with as time goes on. But in the research world, we describe a lot of the same things with 18 million zillion different terms instead of just calling it one thing. But that's because in your domain and in your discipline, it's described this way or a different way. So I think if the idea is to understand the balance of good and evil, understand the role that you play in the world, then why is it up to us to determine how people do that? Because we cannot be the person that says you're good and you're bad. We don't have the ability to do that for others. So why is it that we try? Why is it that we condemn people for doing different things? Another thing that the book was talking about is if God is omnipresent, that means that God is in you. And I think in Christianity, you learn to accept Jesus into your heart, accept God into your heart. So that means that they are inside of you. Yes. So how is that any different from the people that aren't necessarily spiritual or aren't necessarily religious, but believe that God is inside of them? I don't know that I'd say they're different, especially because, like, let's say you are someone that wants to be a fisher of men, right? I think I grew up believing that people would see Jesus through you. And to some extent, Jesus and what he represents are these good and beautiful traits, yes, but people can also pick up on that. I feel like if you don't have that religious background, people can say, I really like your energy. I really like your vibe. But what if you got to that place of understanding yourself from a different background? Last big thing that this book kind of touched on and made me think about a lot is that the Bible, as it's used in a lot of different ways today, allows for men to stay on top, but preach this idea that in the end, we will all be equal in heaven. Okay. This is not a commentary on whether heaven or hell exists. Like, I don't think that we're meant to conceptualize what either of those places look like. But what I do know is that why not live for today and for the moment and take care of the life and the planet and the earth that we have now instead of not caring about it because we think that heaven on earth is going to be better or going to heaven is going to be better. We should care about the earth and where we live so that our children and future people can live in it. And it's not a bad thing because we can't die and wherever we go come back and tell our stories. So after we're gone, nobody's gonna know. Like, we leave what we leave. So why not work and do better for the place that we're in the way that we have it? Those were my thoughts from finishing. Maybe when I talk about this in the December wrap up, I will have more here or different thoughts. I hope that was understood and made some semblance of sense. I've also decided double Advent romance tomorrow instead of today. I just don't really care about what Annie and her friends are doing today. So we'll do that tomorrow. And I think I'm just going to enjoy the rest of the day, celebrate the fact that I finished my third semester, and just revel in that a bit. I think you deserve to take slow moments and acknowledge the wins instead of trying to move on to the next thing. So if there's not another update from me today, I'll see you guys tomorrow. You better hold on. It's gonna find you. It's gonna find you. Hold on.